There's oral accounts of Blackfoot Territory, going all the way back to Napi, the old man, who emerged in an era of megafauna like the soyistamik, or water bull. Napi's selfish tendencies led to fundamental changes in some of the plants and animals. Species like the giant bison, Pleistocene bobcat, and short-faced bear all underwent dramatic transformations to take their present-day forms. A lot of plants and animals were affected. Humans, too. Back then, men and women lived in separate camps. They didn't even have dogs yet. Instead, the men used crows as hunting partners, and the women, with their buffalo jump, kept magpies as pets. Before the men and women's camps ever came together, Napi gambled against Coyote. It was a hoop and arrow game played at the base of the mountains near the source of what would later be named the Old Man River, Napi Sisachta. That gambling place eventually became something of an open-air Olympic stadium for the indigenous people of Western North America. Napi's Playground, it's called. And when he gambled against Coyote there, for the first several throws, Napi was losing. He had to forfeit his clothes and even a couple body parts. But then he sang something empowering, a special song, and things began to turn around. When the game ended, Napi and his people had won the black waters moving east off the mountains, while Coyote and his tribes were relegated to those flowing west. You see, back then, probably just after the last glaciation, political boundaries or tribal territories were defined less by land than by new and renewed rivers, their tributaries, and those highlands, hills, or mountains which fed them. Amidst the black waters flowing east off the Rockies were large glacial lakes, Bachtomachsikimi. One of these lakes, currently known as Lower St. Mary's, feeds tributaries of both the Saskatchewan and Missouri river systems. It's the connection point between the two lodges or drainage basins of Blackfoot Territory. And for this reason, it's also the origin site of the first medicine bundle, Xiskstakiamopistan, or the beaver bundle. This was a gift from the animals to the humans, made during a treaty agreed upon by all species of the waters, lands, and skies of this region. Through the treaty, plants and animals who'd long evolved here would be respected as potential elders, capable of transferring important lessons in the essential skills of architecture, food and medicine acquisition, self-defense, marriage, child-rearing. The beaver, for their part, modeled a way of life that helped thousands of others thrive. That's why they were able to ask the other animals to share some of their knowledge with the humans, and in exchange for these teachings, which included the domestication of dogs, by the way, the humans agreed to respect all others, killing only for subsistence, never just for convenience or fear. From that point on, when the beaver bundle came in, the Blackfoot bands strove to coexist in greater and greater synergy with the life of this region. Many other bundles and sacred societies resulted from this pursuit. Some of them, like the beaver bundle, remain active in ceremony today. The Thunder Pipes, Horn Society, the Motokiks or Women's Society, the Brave Dogs, Doves, and more. Archaeology, like the old stories, speaks to a cultural continuity that existed throughout Blackfoot Territory for many thousands of years. The bands had mastered a sustainable way of living here, and they expected any newcomers to adopt these ways as well. This is why the Tsuut'ina Nation, near present-day Calgary for example, practices Blackfoot traditions even though they're a Dene-speaking community. At the time of European colonization, there were dozens of Blackfoot bands organized into 3 tribes that were interrelated by kinship lines of blood, marriage, and ceremonial transfer. These tribes were and are the Kaena, Siksika, and Piikani, although the latter became further split into northern and southern factions that have ended up on opposite sides of the Canadian-American border. The splitting of the Piikani was a symptom of turbulent times. The United States Army had been actively warring against the tribes and leading an effort to exterminate the bison that were their primary source of subsistence. In response to these pressures, many of the surviving Blackfoot people had gathered in large summer encampments along the conjunction of the St. Mary's and Old Man rivers, in the vicinity of what would later become the city of Lethbridge. In fact, it was the number of camps along this conjunction during the 1869 and 1870 seasons which led American traders to build Fort Whoop up here. This, in turn, prompted the formation of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and eventually, decades of apartheid and forced assimilation for the Blackfoot people. Through all the recent upheaval, Blackfoot ceremonies have continued to be practiced and transmitted to future generations. The language is still spoken, the old stories and songs are remembered, and many traditionally important sites continue to be visited. This is Blackfoot Territory. Gitawachsinun, what feeds or nourishes us.